Hello everyone, TLSG here. Welcome back to another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we do have a brand new deck build, and yes, the featured location is still in effect. We haven't been seeing it anywhere near as often, and even if we do, this deck list is so low to the ground that it performs well with the featured location. It doesn't run any kind of counters. You could easily sub out potentially like a Black Widow for an armor, for a Shang-Chi, for a Goose, but I haven't been seeing the Gamma Lab nearly as often as I was, and so I couldn't really justify dropping a Goose when it doesn't feel as good as blocking their draw with a Black Widow. And so this deck list, as you may have been able to gather, is a bounce deck list. We are going to drop a lot of low cost cards. We're going to use an Iron Fist, push a Human Torch. We're going to buff up our Bishop and our Angela as our primary high power targets. And then we're going to use the powerful effects of our one cost cards in the Hood, Iceman, Korg to really disrupt the opponent. And then we're going to bounce those back into our hand with cards like Falcon and Beast to really push that upside and elevate it to an insane level. And I haven't covered a Beast bounce deck list, and so I did want to bring this deck archetype into a video. And so running through all of the cards really quickly, we have the Hood. He's going to be a cheap card. If we bounce him, he'll be 0 cost, but his positive effect is that he adds a demon card to our hand. And so if we drop the Hood 2, maybe even 3 times, we can get 2 or 3 demon tokens for a pretty big power push for a low amount of energy. We have Human Torch. And yes, this is not a full-on move deck list, but that doesn't mean that the Human Torch can't get pretty large. I was able to get a 32 power Human Torch with the help of one location that shifted him after turn 5, and then we were able to pull him with Cloak, but we got a 32 power Human Torch off of this build. And so it is possible for him to have a huge impact into the game and on the board. We have Iceman, who is going to help disrupt the opponent's curve. So if they were running a Mr. Negative, maybe we hit Mr. Negative before they can drop it, and they can no longer drop it on 4, they have to wait till 5, and then it mitigates his impactfulness a lot. And then other times we're going to hit a rock or something that the opponent doesn't want to play anyways, and so it doesn't always make a huge impact, but it can be game changing without you even realizing it. We have Iron Fist. This is going to allow us to either push additional cards into an Angela lane to buffer up further. It's going to allow us to move our Human Torch. It's going to allow us quite a few cool plays, and it enables quite a bit of power, and at a cheap cost, it's a good card to bounce back into our hand, pull back in with Falcon, and it really helps us buff up Angela quite a bit. We have Korg, who is going to shuffle a rock into their deck. Dropping this one time is kind of frustrating. It does disrupt the opponent's draw. You drop it 2 or even 3 times. Odds are they're going to draw at least one of those rocks. Maybe if you can get lucky, they draw 2, and then if you block their draw with Black Widow for a couple of turns, that disrupts them as well. If you hit their Iron Man with a Iceman and made it 6 power instead of 5, you can cause a lot of disruption by bouncing these little guys back and forth. And then we have Angela. Every time a card is played here, she's going to gain +2 power. So this is going to be great for dropping our 1-cost cards into her lane, pulling them back in with Falcon, redropping them again. She can become a 13 to 17 power card pretty easily. And then we have Black Widow. Black Widow is going to be a decent target to bounce with Beast. We can drop her on 2. We can then pull it back in with Beast, drop her again to disrupt a couple of draws of the opponent. And then all the while we're dropping Korg, we're dropping Iceman to further impact and negatively affect the opponent's draw. And then we have the biggest enabler for this deck list of Beast. He's going to on reveal return all of the cards at that location to our hand, and they're going to cost 1 less. And so he's going to be great in bouncing our 1-cost cards, or even bouncing our Falcon back into our hand to then redrop the 1-cost cards again. Just some really cool combos that you can do with this list. And then we have Falcon. Falcon is going to return our 1-cost cards to our hand. And so again, another huge enabler for this deck list. We can drop 2, maybe 3 1-cost cards into Angela's lane. We can pull them back in with Falcon. We can then redrop them once again. We can do the same thing. It helps buff up Bishop. Just a lot of positive upside from Falcon and Beast in this list. We have Cloak. Cloak is going to allow us to maneuver our power, potentially shift things out of the Angela lane. We can shift Angela over into a lane that we need to be competitive for, and we can also use it to move our Human Torch 1 additional time to get it anywhere from like 4, 8, 16, even 32 power if you hit a really good high roll. And then we have our Bishop. Bishop is going to be a huge unit in this deck list as well. If you drop him on 3 and then you start flooding the board with your 1-cost cards, your Beast, you pull them back in, you flood them back onto the board again, Bishop bishop can easily be 10 plus power by the end of the game. And then to round out the deck list, we have America Chavez. America Chavez is going to allow us to draw the other resources more consistently, and she gives us a good power push on the last turn. Maybe we use her, maybe we don't. At that point, maybe we have 2 or 3 demon tokens that we want to drop instead, or maybe we have a lot of 1-cost cards that are 0 cost because we bounce them back in with Beast, and then we can drop both the 1-cost cards, which are now 0, and Chavez onto the board all in the same turn for some really big power pushes and upside. And so looking at this deck list, you wouldn't think that it would be anything special. It is a lot of low-cost cards, but all of their own reveal abilities really do add up. So Iceman once is disruptive. Korg once is disruptive. The Hood is beneficial when receiving that token. But if you take that in combination with dropping them 2-3 times, as well as buffing up the Bishop and the Angela at the same time, all of a sudden you have a really disruptive force, and it's going to be really hard to be competitive against it. And so that is the rundown of the deck list. We are going to go ahead and jump into a few games. I will see you guys there. All right, we have Bali, and we do have our Angela, we have our Hood, our Beast, so we're going to be able to do some pretty cool combos this game. So I think we start off by playing our Hood into the unknown location. If it turns into Gamma Lab, great. If not, that's okay. We can bounce it back into our hand. And so Clintar is pretty tough at a -2 power, but we're going to be able to do some things like Angela. We can then follow that up with a Bishop in one of the other lanes, so potentially in Clintar itself. I think we do Bishop into Clintar. We then next turn will do either 1 or 2 1-cost cards and a Cloak, which will allow us to re-maneuver our power level. Okay, and so then they used a Juggernaut in Clintar, which is kind of odd. And so it pushes our Bishop over into X-Mansion, which turns out is okay because we get Storm out of the package and they get a Morbius. So we are going to lock down this location. I think with that, we may go ahead and do a Cloak, and then we could do a double Demon. Next turn, that's going to allow us to either move our Angela over or move the cards that we want to bounce back into our hand with Beast so that we can re-drop them for a cheap cost. And so let's go ahead and lock that in. They do invest some resources into this location, so it may be that we end up, if we draw into Iron Fist, we may even bounce or push one of those cards from Clintar over into the flooded lane if we need additional power. But I think with our Bishop, he's going to get incredibly large. He's going to be a really big force to be reckoned with. I think we can easily compete with a 12 power Devil Dino. Ooh, and so we do end up getting our Iron Fist. And so I think maybe we do our Human Torch, we move it to get him doubled. We will then drop our Beast. We can then drop our Iron Fist, and then we can drop our Falcon off of it. We're not going to be able to play America Chavez this next turn, but we are going to pull into all of our 1-cost cards, so we're going to be able to redistribute them. We'll be able to move the Human Torch again with Iron Fist. We'll be able to drop the Demon. We'll be able to hold the negative token. So I feel pretty good about that play line. I don't think there's going to be any issue in coming up over their power level in the flooded location unless they have some way to go wide, and even then we may drop enough cards that we're going to be fine. And I mean, I guess we could have bounced the Cloak back into our hand as well with our Beast to drop it back down at 1 power, but the Beast would have been a 0 power card in Clintar, which just feels like it clogs up the board. And so we do have a 14 power Angela right now. Whenever we drop an additional card, it will get reduced by 5. We can do our Demon, we can do an Iron Fist and a Human Torch to push 8 power here. That's going to be a really big power push into Clintar. It's going to be a decent power push into Atlantis, and then we're dropping 3 cards, which will bring us up to 12. If they drop any cards, then their Devil Dino will be below our power level. If they just hold the cards in hand, they don't play anything, then we'll be okay as well. And so I think we lock that in. We are going to have 2 cards in Clintar. Ooh, so they use Magneto, which pulls our Storm out. But their Devil Dino is 10 power, and we drop 3 cards, so we are still going to be competitive and be able to push for that tie. And then as long as we win Atlantis by more than they win Clintar, which is 10, then we are okay. Because our Bishop was able to get so large and our Angela was able to get buffed up by so much, we were able to still come out over even with the Magneto disruption that we weren't anticipating. We were still able to make it happen. We were still able to tie this lane. It would have probably been better had we dropped a card here to be pushed over, or maybe if we would have pushed the Falcon over on the last turn. But nonetheless, we did get 4 cubes out of it. We are going to go ahead and jump into another one. All right, so next up we have Mustang Ross. And for me, my favorite card to drop right off the bat is Iceman. We will probably end up dropping the Hood into Shadowland to give Beast a good target to bounce the cards, or if we draw into Falcon, so maybe we don't play Iceman in Shadowland. Maybe we play it into the middle location, we hope, for Gamma Lab. If we draw into Gamma Lab, that's great. We're going to have a lot of low-cost cards that are going to turn into big hulks, but otherwise, I think we're okay. And so it turns into Savage Land. Ooh. And so we also draw into Beast. So we could do Black Widow this turn, which is going to restrict their draw. They ran a discard. I didn't pay attention to what Blade discarded, but if they're running a Hela deck and they don't have Hela in hand, and so it's a Lady Sif, they discard their Infinite. They only have one resource left. They are not going to draw this turn. This next turn, we are going to drop a Korg and Beast, which would allow us to drop our Black Widow once again. So they would only get one more draw chance at their Hela, and so they did end up retreating from that. Okay, so next up we have Ganrock, and Kamartaj is the first location. We're going to drop our Korg, which is going to send 2 rocks into their deck. We're then going to drop our Black Widow on turn 2, which is going to send 2 Widow's Bites into their hand, not allowing them to draw, further disrupting their draw potential. And then turn 3, we probably do something basic like a Bishop, and then maybe after that we drop our Human Torch and our Falcon. If we can draw into Iron Fist, we can drop him here, and we'll be able to move the Human Torch from here all the way over on the same turn, just in one drop. And so they haven't dropped anything yet, but I do like this play line, at least this first 2 Wombo combo. It may be enough to make them retreat. Once they see the Black Widows, the Widow's Bites coming in, that may be enough to make them not want to go any further. If this is Gamma Lab though, we gave them the easiest 4 Hulk lane ever. Okay, so it's not. Fortunately for us, it is not. So we're going to drop our Bishop into Lemuria. We're really hoping for the high roll of the Iron Fist. If we can draw into Iron Fist, it's beautiful because Human Torch would get buffed up here and would get buffed up here. But unfortunately, we don't get that upside. So I think we're going to drop our Iceman, we're going to drop Cloak, and then we're going to drop our Human Torch. It doesn't necessarily matter where right now, as long as we're moving him into Kunlun, because he will get a +2 power bonus. When he moves into Kunlun, we can move all of our other 1 costs as well for some pretty decent upside. And Bishop should flip before any of our other cards here. And so they do play a lot. Oh my gosh, that is so, so many low impact cards. So they do run a 0. So I'm wondering if they have like a Red Skull or something else that they're going to drop on 5. And so like a Red Skull and then a Taskmaster to follow up and finish out the game. So they are going to be able to make their Widow's Bites and Rocks +2 power each if they want to. And so I think we're going to move our Iceman. We are then going to double drop our Hood, which is going to give us 2 Demon tokens in hand. So we're going to get quite a bit of upside. And then finally, we're going to finish that off with dropping Falcon. We're going to pull all of our 1-cost cards back into our hand to be able to do the double triggers again, to be able to buff up our Bishop further. Just a lot of good upside from the Falcon play here. And so they do move their cards over, which makes sense. That's going to give them +8 overall for moving cards over, which is huge. Huge into Kunlun. Our Human Torch, when it reveals though, is 8 power after the Kunlun play. And so if we can now draw into Iron Fist and then Human Torch, we can do some really crazy things. Oh, and so they have a Typhoid Mary. And so now they can follow that up with a Taskmaster, but that's only 10 power. And so I think we go with, I think we're okay here, at least for now. 6 more power here would put us at 13. And so then we could do our Demon, we could do our Human Torch, we could do our Korg and our Iceman, which will push us up over the power level here. That's going to be a 5 power push. And so actually 13 brings us down to 11 if we play the Hood. So we don't want to play the Hood. I was trying to justify it because we will buff up our Bishop by 1 additional if we played it, but I don't think it's worth it to do so. So we're going to go ahead and lock that in. I think that's a good enough power dispersion. Ooh, so they do use magic. And so they do catch us a little bit by surprise. We could have dropped the Hood and then dropped our Chavez and some other cards later on. But we do have a really big power push into the Limbo lane. We have a decent push into Lemuria. So even if they skip or drop something really highly impactful. So maybe a Blue Marvel, which would push this up by 4. Ooh, and so we can't drop the Beast here. So if they do a Blue Marvel, that'll be +6 overall. overall in this lane if they drop it here, which will put them at 19. So if they have a 1-cost card as well, maybe they could put them up to 20 or above. If they skip, they get 7 power, which will bring them to 15 here. But of course, they lose these 2 lanes. Are we worried about a blue Marvel play? I'm not really sure what they're running, to be honest. And so I almost want to play our Chavez here. That's going to buff this lane up by 1. So even if they pass, we'll win in all 3 still. Oh my gosh, it doesn't feel great. We're going to go ahead and lock it in. Try to figure out what they're playing. So they play 2 cards into Lemuria, which I don't think does it for them. I'm curious why they... Ooh, the Killmonger is huge, though. The Killmonger comes in absolutely massive. But we have enough power in our Chavez and our Bishop that it is not enough. That was so incredibly close. It wasn't in Kunlun because of how much power we could push, but in the other lanes was so incredibly close. But luckily we were able to just barely pull it out. All right, so next up we have Wolfgang. And the first location is Lechugia, so we're not going to play any cards there. We go ahead and play our Human Torch, and then on turn 2, we are going to go ahead and play our Cloak. If this turns out to be Gamma Lab and we do move Human Torch over, that Hulk will end up being 22 power instead of 11. And so we'd have basically 2 Hulks in that location because of it. Unfortunately, it does turn out that it is Kamartaj, which is not terrible. We are going to be able to, first we will drop our Bishop. Next turn, we're going to drop something like an Iceman and a Beast, or a Korg and a Beast, depending on what they drop here. That way we can pull our Human Torch and our Cloak back into our hands. We'll be able to move the Human Torch once again and create a decent amount of upside. And if we can draw into Iron Fist with Kamartaj, that Human Torch is going to go for a ride all the way across. Oh, what are the chances that you have the double Killmonger, my friend? I think we do a Black Widow. That's going to mean they can't draw this next turn. We're going to follow that up immediately with a Beast. That way we drop the Black Widow again for 1 cost. We can send 2 more Widow's Bites in the hand if we need to. And not a huge power push. It's more of a counter power push for them. So here we do fill up their hand. So even if they did something where they dropped a card that would typically draw a card, they're not going to be able to. And then Okoye, they're not drawing any of those resources. They're going to have to really flood them onto the board and take up their valuable space here or shuffle in rocks here. And so I think we do the Hood. Oh no, we have to play into the Avengers compound. So I'm going to go ahead and drop our Black Widow, our Iceman, and our Korg. That is going to send 1 more Widow's Bite into their hand to disrupt them from drawing any more cards. We will then next turn draw into our Chavez, which I don't know that it's going to be enough, but we are going to give it a shot. We send 1 more Widow's Bite into their hand. If they dropped both of the ones we sent last turn, they are still, unfortunately for them, not going to be able to draw cards. And then we do shuffle rocks into their deck list just in case they are able to draw. So there's 1 Widow's Bite, there's 1 more. So we do have a Widow's Bite in their hand. They dropped a Sarah, so they are going to have to come up over our power level by a decent margin in the compound to win. And so if we thought they were going to extend the game, it would be best for us to drop our Hood, maybe even like a Cloak, but I don't know for sure that they're going to be able to do that. With a Sarah, maybe they do, or maybe they just flood the board entirely. But we're going to drop our Chavez. I think we lose this one. I don't think we have the benefit. The only potential solace is that we disrupted their draw long enough that they're not going to be able to have the key resources to come up over our power level. That is our only chance here. And so they drop 2 cards into the Gia, depending on what those cards are. So 1 is magic, so it does extend the game. So it would have been better for us to drop our Hood, but of course we didn't know that for sure. And so now we do have our Angela, and so they do have to come up over the power level quite a bit. They draw 1 more card. I think we're going to go ahead and play our Hood because it cancels out the negative effect here, but it buffs up our Bishop by 1. That's also a somewhat decent power push in Limbo. Okay, so they do end up retreating. I strongly believe that either the Korg, Iceman, or the Widow's Bites is what caused us to be able to win that game. And the fact that they had to drop 3 of them onto the board, that takes up 3 of their highly needed spaces to play and push power. And so we were able to sneak away the 1 cube. We had to work really hard for that 1 cube, but we got it nonetheless. All right, so next up we have AJ ready. And in our starting hand, we have our Iceman. We are going to play him into the unknown location to try to disrupt some of their draw line a little bit. And then if we do flip into Gamma Lab, that's going to allow us to have a resource already there potentially. And so, ooh, Murder World is the second location that reveals. We are going to go ahead and drop our Black Widow into the unknown location as well. We can always pull back in our Iceman, not necessarily the Black Widow, but we can pull back in our Iceman if we need to. And so this one is the Isle of Silence. And so I think what we want to do, we do really want to drop the hood and then pull our Black Widow back in. But we're going to go ahead and drop our Bishop. That way the Bishop is going to be able to start being able to get buffed up and start being competitive in Clintar. And so they do drop quite a few resources into Murder World. They have a 9 power lane there. And so we are going to drop our hood. We're going to drop our Beast, which is going to reduce the cost of these cards. And then we're also going to drop our Korg here. Our Korg is going to shuffle a rock into their hand or into their deck to potentially disrupt that draw even further. And they drop a Rescue, so they're going to have a pretty powerful Isle of Silence lane. And so we do pull back into our key resources. I think from here we probably drop them onto the board. It doesn't really matter where, because then we'll go ahead and drop our Falcon this next turn. That will buff up our Falcon quite a bit. So I think we do Angela. We are then going to drop our hood. We are going to drop our Black Widow into the Isle of Silence, because I don't think we're going to be competitive here, but we are going to have some pretty decent upside. So we are going to go ahead and drop our Falcon. I think we snap off of this, because if I know this deck list, it looks like they're running a Destruction, so I would anticipate a Professor X play here, which would give them the extra +5 power from Rescue's on reveal ability. Ooh, so maybe it's a Hobgoblin. It can't be a Professor X because ongoing effects are disabled in this lane. And so we're going to go ahead and go with what we have already on the board and see if this is a Hobgoblin that sends our way. No, it's a Death already because they had so many cards that were destroyed. But we did rotate our resources away from this lane because of the Rescue play. And so yes, Rescue is a really high power card. It is great for a big power push, but it caused us to play away from that lane with our resources. And so our Bishop is getting pretty big here. And then Falcon is going to allow us to pull back into the rest of our 1-cost cards. They are not able to draw a card on this turn because we dropped our Black Widow again. And so they do end up retreating because they don't have the resources that they need. Either we disrupt the flow with Iceman, we send them rocks with Korg, we disrupt their draw ability with Black Widow. It makes it really difficult to push a high amount of power consistently. All right, so next up we have Shady Soul. And we do draw into a rock, unfortunately, from Subterranean. So we already have a lot of rocks in our deck. Korg is going to add fuel to the fire, and maybe we can drop them into a Gamma Lab. Maybe we can get lucky. But we are going to drop the rock here into the third location. For whatever reason, I like that better than the middle location. And then before we get too deep into this game, ooh, so the Gamma Lab was the middle one. So we can actually pull our rock back in if we wanted to. We could pull our rock back in. That way we have 3 cards to drop next turn, but that does waste the pull in. Maybe we just drop Iron Fist and then we drop next turn something here. Or maybe we go with Cloak. That'll allow us to move our rock, but they'll be able to move their hood. But I think that's okay. They're going to start investing resources here. We're going to make it easier for them to push more into this lane. And they send us a Black Widow, which seems odd because that's going to be a free drop for us. Why would you do that, Shady? That's so shady of you. And so I think we drop our Bishop outside of the Gamma Lab. I don't think we push for 4 drops there. I think we push for 3. They probably gave us the Widow's Bite because they have a Shang-Chi play or they have a way to counter this play. But we are going to go ahead and give it a shot anyways. They do have 2 cards, or they're going to have, and they don't take the bait and move their hood over. Interesting. So we're actually going to be able to drop our Falcon. We can drop our Falcon and pull the hood back into our hand. So that's going to be a fun interaction. We're going to get some upside from them sending us that hood. So we're going to give it a little smiley face. We're going to give a little bit of a tell for our hand, just ever so slightly. And then I think we play our Iron Fist. We'll go ahead and do the Human Torch here, which will push sideways. Then we'll drop Falcon to pull all 3 of our 1 costs back into our hand to be able to redistribute and reposition them as we want to or as we need to. And they drop 3 cards here. So I'm curious what they have. Is it 3 rocks? Are they running a really low to the ground deck? What could they have that they could drop that many resources that quickly? And so an Iceman, okay, which hits our hood, a Demon, and then a beast to bounce them back into their hand. Okay, so that makes sense, but with the beast, they're not going to get the upside from the hood here. And so they did play into Black Widow, so I don't anticipate drawing for this last turn. I think we drop our Black Widow. We go ahead and drop an Iron Fist, and then we drop the Human Torch here, which will push over to the side. And like I said, I don't anticipate being able to draw into any cards next turn. I think they will drop the Black Widow again, but it doesn't look like they do. This is probably a Shang-Chi, which will win them Gamma Lab. We just need to be competitive in Onslaught Citadel, which will push 9 power there, which may not be enough to do it. Oh, so they use a Doc Ock. Interesting. And so we have we're impacted by the -2 hood. Kind of wish we would have dropped the hood, which would have given us nothing for them to draw into. So we're going to go ahead and play our Chavez here. They snap because they're confident. Maybe they have a Shang-Chi that will kill this. I don't know exactly what they're running. Ooh, they have a Killmonger, don't they? Do they have a Killmonger? If they have a Killmonger, that leaves 9 power here. Maybe, actually no, a Killmonger wouldn't do it. A Killmonger and a Shang-Chi in this lane would, but we're not quite to that point. So we're going to drop our Chavez in the right lane. We're going to let it play out. We're going to see what they have. Ooh, so they drop 4 cards. So the Widow's Bite, the Viper to send it our way, isn't anything too terrible. The Demon, and then the Iceman, which is not going to be enough for them. Unfortunately, they weren't able to come up over that power level. We do push 13 power in that lane. We come up with another 4-cube victory. We could have snapped, but I wasn't certain what potential they had. And so overall, very good victory. We are going to go ahead and jump into one more. I know that we're going a little bit long, but this deck list has been it's been performing so well, and it's just been so much fun. All right, so next up we have Mr. Grumpy. And so Mr. Grumpy is going to have the Mojo World as the first location. I think we drop our Iron Fist into mid. We are hoping that this is Gamma Lab. That way we can push our Human Torch over. It'll be a 22 power Hulk. I would love to show off that functionality at least once in this video, at least while it's there, because the devs had said they're going to fix it. Ask and you shall receive. So we're going to push our Human Torch over. We're going to drop a hood as well. Not that we need it to be competitive, but we're going to drop it nonetheless. And so we're going to lock that in. And while this is playing out, I did want to say thank you so much to a user that used the super chat feature during our last live stream. So the super chat is similar to the super thanks feature of videos. They donated a very generous amount to highlight a message, and it helps support my content and my channel. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Paul Boxman. Paul, thank you so much. And so here, I don't think we go with an additional Hulk here. I don't think there's any need to. And so we could do our Bishop, and we could follow that up with a Demon and a Beast, which will make them both free after this. And that allows us to drop our Falcon whenever we want to, or if we want to. And so they do drop 3 cards into the Gamma Lab as well. But our Human Torch Hulk is going to be 22 power instead of 11, because that duplication from Human Torch, it sticks after his base stats change. And so that's not going to be the case forever, but for right now, it's because he has that ×2 every time he gets moved. And so right now, it does make the Hulk's power level insanely large. I think we're going to drop our Bishop back down, go ahead and do our Korg and our Demon, and then we drop our Falcon as well. We want to make sure that we cap out Mojo World. Having Bishop there is going to guarantee that the card will grow over time. We can continue to push power even if they do cap it out along with us. And so I am sure that Mr. Grumpy is feeling rather grumpy right now. If they didn't tech in a Shang-Chi, it's going to be very hard for them to come up over and win here. And so I'm kind of hoping that they don't. If they do, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. They had to invest 4 power there. But since they dropped 3 cards, I don't think that is the case. And so we'll see what they did drop. But I don't... Ooh, what? So they used Beast on the Hulk, which will make them 5 costs. So they're going to be able to drop a Hulk this turn and next turn. Which definitely is one way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and drop our Korg and our Iceman into the Elysium lane. I don't think we win this location, but we are going to be able to drop both a 6 power and a 9 power card next turn. And so depending on where they end up dropping a Hulk, I think they're only going to be able to drop them here because they won't be able to fill up Mojo World if they drop them. I think the Hulk... I think the Hulk pullback was a bit of an oversight or a mistake, just because they are so expensive to drop back down. And so they drop 4 cards here. They drop quite a bit in Elysium, so they do cap that location out. So if we need to make a power push, maybe we can, but I don't think we need to. And so then they drop a Hulk as well, and then a demon and a rocket. Okay, and so they still have 2 Hulks in their hand. They did push quite a bit of power. So we're gonna go ahead and do a Chavez here. I bet they do a Hulk and then something else. And so 11 power and then something else. I think between these cards, we may have a slight advantage just because of the last turn power push of Chavez and the +2 to Bishop. So he's going to be 10 power after all is said and done. So let's go ahead and lock in. Let's see them drop the 1 Hulk. And do they drop anything else here? I don't think they do. And I don't think the 1 Hulk and Nightcrawler is going to be enough for them. So there comes down the Hulk, which they're not able to hold it down because of the last turn Chavez, and then because of the Bishop being able to get so large. The 10 power Bishop really did help us bring it home and hold down that game for us. So with that crazy shift of a Hulk game, because they pulled back in, it cost 5. With the Elysium, it went down to 4. So they were able to flood a lot of their power onto the board still, which is just nuts. But we are going to go ahead and end the video after that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below. As always, this is TLSG. Later, guys.